Good evening from Johannesburg. I'm Aurelie Kalenga. Welcome to Let's Have It Out. Tonight and every weeknight here on ENCA, a variety of newsmakers will get their chance to host this program. We'll give you, the viewer, a chance to get involved in the conversation. Unfiltered, accountable and accessible. Tonight we're going to talk about brands, but not in the traditional sense. I want to focus on how the public promise or image of brands can sometimes differ to what they do at an everyday level or just in dealing with clients away from the marketing gimmicks and the messages. One brand that's caught my eye is Absa and their new Africanacity slogan. A few weeks ago, Absa was called out on social media by people who were unhappy with the bank's apparent refusal to do business with asylum seekers and refugees. The social media users claimed this contradicted Absa's Africanacity slogan, which essentially claims to stand for all that is African. Here's how you can be part of this conversation.
Tweet us at ENCA using the hashtag LHIO. Call us on 011-759-6340 or send us a WhatsApp or WhatsApp video on 082-884-6370. And make sure those videos are no longer than 30 seconds, please.
Now I'm joined in studio by Absa Group Head of Communications, Songezo Zibi. Hi Songezo, thank you so much for joining us this evening. So what exactly is Africanacity? Who does it represent and what does it mean?
So Africanacity is a term that was coined as part of the Absa relaunch in July 2011. Absa is no longer just a South African company. We've got a presence in 11 African countries in total. And Africanacity is a play on the word tenacity, African tenacity, which is Africans' ability to always get things done, despite all the obstacles they have to deal with every day.
Now, what essentially is the difference between the old Absa and the new African Absa? Is it just the change of the slogan, or what exactly can be felt is the core difference?
So the brand, by the way, was the outcome. The Africanacity and the new Absa, the new logo and the new slogan were the outcome of a process of reorganizing and changing the strategy of the organization. There were two drivers. Firstly, we are no longer part of Barclays PLC because we were Barclays Africa Group before. We're now the Absa Group based here in Johannesburg with our own operations on the continent. The second thing is that gave us an opportunity to determine what bank we are going to be. And in the process of researching, we spoke to about 130,000 people throughout the continent. And there were certain attributes they told us they expect from a financial institution, from a corporate in the 21st century. And that's how we got to the point where we are now.
Now, Songezo, sometimes we see that brands come up with these strategies and taglines that don't really translate to the people or the clients that they're serving. So what have you done at Absa to ensure that this Africanacity way of doing things trickles down to all levels of the organization, including at branch level? Are you training staff, or are there new forums in place where people are actually aware of this new African way of doing things and this Africanacity new method of dealing with things?
So 4 to 6 months before the actual launch itself, we actually engaged on a company-wide program right through the continent to introduce the new brand, the new strategy, and then the new brand to all our colleagues. We've got 42,000 people in the bank. We got to about 38,000 people by July 11. And that was about placing the customer at the center of what we do. But you have to remember that these taglines are also aspirational. So at the point where you say this is what we're going to be, you do not immediately become that the next day to completeness. So it is supposed to provide the stretch because it's an aspiration that drives a change in behavior and service over time.
Now, who does this new Absa do business with or aspire to do business with? Are refugees and asylum seekers allowed to do business with Absa? Are they allowed to open accounts with Absa?
No, of course. But I think in every country in which we're in, we have to operate within the legal framework that you have in that country. In South Africa, as you know, there is a Financial Intelligence Center Act which requires certain things. Now, banks are not able to waive some of those requirements in deciding which customers to engage with. Even for myself, working for the bank, when I was purchasing a car the other time, I had to provide the same documents at the dealership that everybody does. So you try and operate within the rules that you have.
So if a foreigner or I beg your pardon, if an asylum seeker or refugee comes to Absa today and says they want to open a bank account, what is the procedure? What documents will they be required to submit, or will they simply be turned away?
So it's not. So let's go back. So the Financial Intelligence Center Act requires anybody who opens a bank account to have certain documentation, which may be a challenge for asylum seekers, in particular when their status has not yet been determined. In other words, they have not yet been granted asylum. Now, this tends to become a chicken and egg because you need to get by, you need a bank account and that sort of thing. A bank needs a proof of residence so that we show that that is where you live. You need an ID. There's a couple of documents that you need to provide. Now, if you're not able to provide a proof of address, such as a rates bill, so if you're an asylum seeker, you're not going to be able to produce a rates bill. The question is a bank able to waive that requirement? The law is the law. It is what it is. So unfortunately, it's not a discrimination against somebody because you're an asylum seeker. You might have somebody who's been granted asylum who now has residency in the country and is able to produce these documents. I think to this question, what we really have to ask is whether there are mechanisms that allow people who have not yet been granted asylum to be able to operate bank accounts and buy things and transact like everybody else. If the answer is yes, let us amend the law or create exceptions therein so that we can do it.
And is Absa pushing forward for any of these laws to be amended or any changes so that these people can have an opportunity to do business with you?
So I think this is something that maybe the Banking Association can take up with. We have not specifically taken that up as an issue because it is a legislative problem that we have in South Africa. Well, it is an obstacle, let me put it like that. It is a legislative requirement that is an obstacle for asylum seekers. Now, you might find that people have a similar experience at other banks. I do not know of an instance where a financial institution is able to waive on its own a legal requirement. It certainly would not be legal. In the same way that you can't get a SIM card that you do not recur.
Okay, we're going to expand more on that point when we come back. We'll continue the conversation after the break. Remember to use the hashtag LHIO on social media.